Ever get a story on a car when it comes to you and you just kind of wonder or second guess what's going on? Got a car here from another shop, and supposedly they put in the wrong oil filter on it and the motor blew up, seized up. Want to know if we could do a motor in it. So we priced them out, and of course they said, yeah, we want you guys to do the motor because they're eating the motor. Okay, whatever. We don't care. It's a job for us. So it's a Pontiac Vibe, a Toyota Matrix basically. Rebadged. It's not a Pontiac. Some people think it actually is. No, it's a Toyota Matrix. And they're very reliable cars. But for some reason we got it in, they towed it into us, and they started taking the motor apart. I don't know why, because that shop is not known for doing stuff like that. So why they even did that, I have no idea. Let me show you what we got. So here it is. And they took the valve cover off. Looks like they tried to take the cams out or something. And they took the timing chains off. Cleaned up stuff. I don't know why. So who knows what on earth they actually were trying to accomplish. I don't know. But I'm going to put this thing up in the air and take a look from underneath and see what's going on. Now from underneath everything looks normal. I mean, here's a filter. I don't know if they tried to rechange it, because I mean, obviously that looks brand new. I don't see any holes in anything. Doesn't look like it blew anything up. I guess it just locked up. But I got to look inside to see if there's the parts inside. I didn't even bother to look yet. But at least the coolant in that is out of it. So these motors you can pull out from the top. I've done a few of them. Usually very high mileage vehicles. I didn't even check to see what the mileage is on this one. It doesn't really matter to me. Well, let me let it down and actually look inside. So here we go in the trunk. There's all these parts. Obviously you can see there's oil all over this. So just drop that on the floor. Here's everything that came off it. Like I said, I'm not 100% certain why they did this, but I need to see if the motor will actually turn over. Hopefully it will, because if the motor doesn't turn over, then I'm going to have to separate the motor and training, basically pull it out as a unit. And I really don't want to if I don't have to. If it won't turn over, then I'm going to try to drop, there we go, the camera's getting dark again. I have to try to drop the oil pan just to see if I can loosen up the rods and the mains to get this thing to turn. Let's see what happens. So the puzzled look on my face is there for a reason. So I put the crank bolt back in with the lower pulley. Now they told me this thing was locked up solid. I'm not putting any effort in that. I am using my left arm and I'm a righty. It turns with no issue. Locked up solid? Who the heck knows? And they said they put the wrong oil filter on. What does that mean? The wrong oil filter? I don't know. I mean, I see oil residue underneath this thing. Did they double gasket it? Did it have a knock? If it had a knock, why'd you take the timing chains and stuff off and not take the oil pan off? If you don't know what you're doing, don't touch stuff. I mean, when you really have no idea what you're doing, don't touch stuff. All right, well, it's getting a motor regardless. So, I mean, I'm not fixing whatever's here because I don't know what's going on now. I'm not about to put it back together to find out. It'd be funny as anything if the alternator was seized. I've seen that. I bought a Jeep that way because the alternator was seized. Thought it needed a motor, got it home, needed an alternator. All right, let me keep going. All right, I got the converter bolts out there, and remember what I told you in the other videos, make sure you push the converter into the tranny, get it away from the flywheel as much as you can, because that'll help keep the snout of the converter from getting stuck inside the crankshaft. Even though it still may, this helps you a little bit to make sure that it, it's actually moving and it's not actually seized into the crankshaft, because I have seen the snouts seized into the crankshaft also. Let's keep going on this. What else is next? Usually when I'm down here, what I'll start doing is start taking all the lower mount tranny bell housing bolts out, because it's just easier here. And one thing too, which is kind of neat that Toyota does, I don't know if you can see it, let's see. on the back side of the motor here. Let's see, where is it? Right there. It's a block drain. Yep. Very handy. Keeps you getting antifreeze all over the place as you're taking the motor out. Just thought I'd show you that. Alright. Let's get it going. Alright, so next step from up top, we're going to pull the intake off, the radiator out, and I already sucked down the AC system so there's no charge in it anymore. I'm going to knock the hoses off of it, stuff like that. As you can see, there, a lot of this was already taken apart, like I said, the alternator and that, because we're going to take the wiring harness off and leave it in the vehicle on this particular car. A lot of them, I usually take the wiring harness out with it, but the harness goes through the firewall, and it's just easier to leave it in the vehicle. So this is what we're going to do, and let's get this done. There was absolutely nothing special as to what I've done so far. It's all straightforward. Everything just unbolts real easy, comes out real easy. There's really no reason to go through any of it because it is so simple. I took all the intake bolts out on top. There's one support bolt down there. There's a bunch of vacuum hoses, and then the intake just slides off. There's one vacuum hose there. See that one? That goes to that nipple. It's a little tricky to get to. Basically, just take a pry bar or a pair of needle nose, long needle nose pliers, and it just pushes it right off. Because usually you get a little bit oil soaked anyway. So this comes off. So now we're going to take the starter out, get that out of the way, and then make sure we got all the harness stuff out of the way. I'm going to take the hoses off that got to stay with the car, and then I'm going to tuck the harness up and out of the way. With the intake out of the way, I also have the fuel rail unbolted here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to unhook it from down here. And if you look at that connector there, see the yellow right there? There's yellow on the opposite side too. You can see it on the back side there. Basically you squeeze both ends like this, and then it pops up and out. If you have fuel pressure in the system, obviously it's going to spray. What you may want to try to do is disable a fuel pump before you do that and crank it a little bit. Obviously I can't do it with this vehicle. So I already got the bolts out to hold the rail in place. So now you got to remember too, on these, this thing has like a plastic sleeve here. One there, one there. They easily fall out. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to wiggle it a little bit, pull it up and out. Just like that. And there the fuel rail comes out of the way. Now a lot of times on Toyotas, this lower O-ring right here, so focus on that. It's like a rubber sleeve almost. It's not really like an O-ring. A lot of times they get stuck in the cylinder head down inside there, and you got to pick them out. You got to be careful if you're going to reuse them. You can reuse these very successfully, and I've done it many times without issue. Technically, you're supposed to replace them, like I said, but if they're in really good shape, you can reuse them. I really have never had an issue in the past. So, but if you're going to pick them out of the cylinder head, don't use a pick. Use like a very soft flathead screwdriver, something that doesn't have a sharp edge to it, and basically just get in there with it through the hole and then up under the edge, and then boop, pry it up and out, and it usually comes right out. So now we're just going to put this down to the side, and then like I said, don't lose these. And then when you go to tighten the rail back in place, don't over tighten them because you can actually crush these things. I've seen people do that. So now the wiring harness will go up and out of the way. I have two grounds on this side and a couple more connectors. I got the oxygen sensor right there for the rear, but then this I could tuck up and out of the way. Then I got a couple of heater hoses, and then I think this thing is ready to come out except for the two top bell housing bolts. Just one there and then one to the back side, which you can't even see. Alright, so now everything is disconnected. I got all the bell housing bolts out except for this one right here that you can see. But you can see it already started separating. So now is where I got to hook a chain up to it. But I'm going to be pulling the hood off just to be on the safe side because it's a little narrow, the opening. It would probably clear. I just don't know if I want to take a chance. You know, because the motor itself is kind of tall. So it's going to be up. It's going to be close. It's going to be up to here before it comes out, and then the new one's still got to go in. So I'd rather just take the hood off, make my life a little bit easier. coming up and out, you just got to make sure that the manifold clears the firewall, because it will catch on that brake proportioning valve right there. So you just got to pull the whole thing forward just slightly, you know, towards the radiator or the upper support here. And then you just got to be careful of your tranny cooler lines here, because you have very little room in between the two. But right now, it should go straight up. And like I said, always make sure that the converter came out of the flywheel or flex plate, whatever you want to call it. Technically, it's a flex plate, I know that. I always call it flywheel. So now it's getting to a point where the whole assembly has to come to the front of the car. Just like that. So now I'm just going to take it up and out and put it to the side so I can put the other motor in. Alright, so there it is. It's out and it's ready to go over in the pile. I never discard anything until I'm completely done, because I want to make sure. I'm going to be swapping over the exhaust manifolds because one came out of a Corolla, and of course this one is a Matrix. I mean a Vibe, but it's a Matrix. So the manifolds may be different. I don't know. I'm actually using the same injectors that came off this motor, putting it in the other motor that I have, because I've run into issues like that where two different models have a slightly different injector and it could create lean codes or rich codes. So I'm going to be swapping that over. One other thing, always remember your torque converter. Make sure it's fully seated. If you don't know if it's fully seated, measure it. Measure the distance from here to here. And that's the distance from here to here. Because if that's not seated fully, if the converter's hanging outward and you go bolt the motor up, you could break the front pump in the tranny. You don't want to do that. So anyway, that's it for now. So that's it. The day is over. So I'm going to be swapping all that stuff over in the morning. So that's it for now. If you get something out of my videos, hit that like button. If you could, please subscribe. That's it for now. Have a great day. Keep wrenching.